When you think about some of the world's most renowned and celebrated human and civil rights activists, you think of names like Susan B. Anthony, A. Pierre, and Nelson Mandela. All of these prestigious individuals played a critical role in fighting for what they believed to be the best for civilization. Today I'm going to talk about an Argentine human rights activist. This individual won a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in fighting for human rights. He was not only one of the most involved human rights activists in Latin America, he was also a successful painter, writer, and sculptor. Adolfo Perez Esquivel was born in November of 1931 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He began working at an early age, selling newspapers to support his family, and was a full-time gardener at the age of 10. Adolfo has a mixed background of Catholic and Guarani, which are considered indigenous people in Argentina. This cultural background and the poverty he grew up in provided a unique spiritual perspective that would influence him for the rest of his life. Despite the poverty, Adolfo managed to attend the Manuel Belgrano School of Fine Arts in the National University of La Plata. Adolfo's large-scale murals and sculptures can be viewed all over Latin America and Europe. Adolfo represented his spiritual faith in mankind and his love for God in his art. He became a professor of architecture and taught all levels of education for over 25 years. Adolfo began working with Christian pacifist groups in the 1960s and had decided to give up teaching in 1974 when he was chosen as coordinator general for a group of Latin American-based communities promoting liberation for the poor through nonviolent means. In 1976, Argentina was at the hands of what was called the Dirty War. Military dictatorship took power, and the military government carried out a policy of repression, torture, and even murder. People who fought back went missing and were never heard of again. Censorship was strictly enforced, and those who spoke out were thrown in jail. It was a tough time for the Argentine people, and even harder time for human rights activists like Esquivel. Esquivel was well aware of the human rights violations prior to the Dirty War in 1976. And he became increasingly concerned about the way people and local leaders were being abused. Because of his involvement in promoting the liberation for the poor, Esquivel became a prime target for the military and was considered a threat. In 1977, he was put in jail and tortured by the military for 14 months. Now, this is someone who has been fighting for human rights, someone who grew up in poverty, and someone who is concerned about the welfare of individuals. The government, corrupt government, throwing him in jail for 14 months and torturing him for something that he believes in. In 1978, 14 months after his capture, he was named Amnesty International's Political Prisoner of the Year. This led to thousands of letters being sent to the Argentine government demanding his release. His release was granted, and he continued leading the Serpage, which is the Peace and Justice Service promoting liberation for the poor. Adolfo Perez Esquivel was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1980 for his dedication and leadership for fighting for human rights. He is still actively involved in the human rights movement today and supports two groups called the Mothers and the Grandmothers of Mace Square. These groups consist of women who are trying to bring out the truth about the crimes of the Dirty War, to bring justice to their families, and to locate the children of the disappeared. Adolfo also continues to work with Serpage, and one of their main initiatives is focused on canceling the debt of third world countries. In addition to Serpage and supporting the women looking for the missing, Adolfo started two peace villages, which provide training and housing for orphan children in Argentina. So I want you to take a few minutes and think about the millions of children and people living in poverty today. the daily abuse these individuals face from guerrilla warfare and corrupt governments. We need more people like Adolfo, Perez, Esquivel to fight against what is wrong in hopes of making things right. This was an individual who grew up in poverty, experienced abuse firsthand, but fought against and continues to fight for the love of his people. Adolfo Esquivel is a hero to many, an enemy to those who oppose his work, an artist and a leader fighting for the good of mankind.